Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in Landon Swan. He's a co-founder at LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Landon.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right, so we're going to have a discussion on Constellation brands, but I just wanted to get your thoughts here on McDonald's sliding CEO saying that the turmoil in the Middle East is going to have a material impact on their business. We're seeing Starbucks pull back, Chipotle, maybe some other names in this space. I mean, is that material for the longer term, or is this just maybe a glitch here?
Well, I hope it's a glitch, but I think that the key, and you guys kind of hit on this, is who else comes out and talks about this, right? I mean, if it's McDonald's, if it's a one-off, then there's going to be some speculative selling. But if it starts a bit of a chain reaction, some others come out and say, yeah, us too, yeah, that's going to be a problem. So, we'll have to wait and see. We haven't seen anything in our data. Obviously, that's not kind of what we do, but I would agree with the sentiment that you guys put out there. We got to wait and see who else comes out. And if you're a guesser, you're selling because you think others are doing it. But I'm going to wait and see if others actually do.
Yeah, see how that plays out. But now we're talking Constellation brands. They've had a rough 2023, really choppy trade. But if you look at this, this chart on STZ over the last 3 years, it's relatively flat. What kind of data do you guys have? Is this thing underperforming, or is it just one of those things where popular brands become unpopular and tastes switch?
Well, this is a situation where Modelo is, that's their key brand right now. It's the number one beer in the U.S. best selling, and it was on that path before Bud Light's fiasco, but that propelled them into number one. In fact, that whole sort of boycott or backlash that Bud Light that was a huge impetus for a lot of people to switch to Modelo. And we saw a big spike when that happened. It lasted for quite a while. And then the pullback where people kind of move off of that brand has settled on new highs at about 60% higher than it was. So this is people talking about drinking Modelo, using Modelo. And you could see what happened there when the Bud Light controversy happened, the boycott. And again, big spike, pullback. Now we've got higher normal levels for Modelo. And this is their number one brand. So this was a big move, I think, for the company. This is actually bucking the trend. If you look at beer sales, they're hitting their lowest point since 1999. So lowest point in the millennium, if you want to say it that way. But they're actually, Modelo and Constellation brands beers are actually up 12% on a year-over-year basis. So they're going against this downward trend for beer overall, and it started, everything's sort of moving in that direction. So, kudos to them for being able to do that. Very strong. Now, when you look at consumer happiness across all the Constellation brands and its major competitors, they're actually doing really well. They're hanging in there with the top, right there at 71%. And, obviously all eyes immediately on this chart go to Bud Light or go to InBev, and you can see what the problem is here. I mean, they really, really opened the door for all of their competition. The data is still in there. It's been quite a while since that happened, but the data is still punishing them, and consumers are still punishing them. So what we're seeing is that, Constellation's brand, as you said, they've had a choppy year as far as the stock goes. When you look at the overall mentions of the company, it's, they get a bump every summer. It's a bit seasonal. The mentions are somewhat flat. I think they're maybe plus 1%, something like that. But overall, their beer brand Modelo is the one that's the kind of the story. And I think that's what investors are going to want to hear about. How's that doing? How are their other brands doing? But what's great about this company is that they're so diversified. They have beer, they have wine, they have whiskey, they have vodka, they have just about everything. So as tastes change, they've got a solution for those tastes, and they've got something to offer the customer. If you had asked me 10 years ago if Modelo was going to be number one, I said no way, but here we are. So they're getting it done, and between all of their different beers, wines, and High Point whiskey, for example, they have a lot of offerings for the consumer, and it's just where consumers go, that's where they're going to push their marketing.
Nathan, let's go little picture, big picture on this question. Your Modelo data really shows, I think it's the strength of your data because it shows the pop, but it shows it's settling back at a much higher level than it was before. So some of that, a good portion. If you're a Constellation brand, you gotta love how sticky some of the people are. They're trying Modelo or Pacifico or Corona, and they're staying there with that and staying away from Bud Light. Now, let's get to the bigger picture. Their beer sales were up 12% last quarter, and the overall sales were only up 7%. Why? They're trying to transition into higher priced wine and spirits like Mayomi and Kim Crawford and Prisoner Wine. Those are names that I've heard of, and it's not working so far. They expect it to get better long term. You guys have any data on that? This data is significant on the Modelo brand and how it's, sticky on some of that. What about the wine and spirits? That's the part that's really struggling.
Yeah, I think investors are really going to want to hear that, because you're right. I mean, when you've got a broad array of portfolio of products, you want to have the big winner, of course, and you want to have some up and comers. And I think they're trying a lot of things. We've got good data on Mayomi. It looks strong. Corona looks strong. High Point whiskey looks strong, but they're not nearly as good as Modelo. So yes, I think the headline is Modelo takes shares or takes market away from Bud Light, doing really well, and then what else is happening at Constellation, right? Like, how else can you get there? So our data overall is pretty flat for the company just in general, because again, we've got mentions at plus 1% for the whole brand or for the whole company, but Modelo is plus 60% year over year. So if you know averages, you know that overall the rest of those are down. So they've got to make up for that. So I think that will be potentially disappointing for investors to hear that a lot of their efforts aren't paying off. I know they've got a new spike seltzer coming out. There's a lot of things that they're trying, and it's just a matter of which one sticks. So, I think you could probably make the argument they may be too diversified, but I like their diversification because, again, wherever consumer tastes go, no pun intended, they can put their marketing dollars there and hopefully make it work. Now, that's the question, as you're saying. Is that actually happening? Are the marketing dollars working for all of the, the whiskey, the vodka, and all the wines that they're trying to get up to the level of Modelo?
Yeah, 10 years ago, this stock was about an $80 stock. So it's had some runs, just hit all-time highs in 2023. But like we said, choppy trade. You guys have an earnings score on this one going into it, because it seems like some of your data is more supportive than what the stock price has done.
Yeah, the stock price being off a little bit does boost our score just a bit. If you guys remember, anything within 20 of zero, negative 20 to 20 is basically neutral. We're at a plus 22. So we're just on the other side of where we would say, okay, we can place a small bullish bet on this one. A lot of it has to do with that number one brand of beer doing so well. But as you guys point out, investors want to hear that there's growth elsewhere. They don't want to be a one-trick pony. They know, people invest in this company because of the diverse portfolio of brands, and they want success in many brands, not just one.
Yeah, many brands. I was looking through their thing. High West Double Rye Whiskey, which maybe I had a little bit of that over break, and maybe some Modelo, maybe some Corona.
There was Modelo in my house for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yep, it's a favorite. All right, great stuff, great data. As always, Landon, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Although I do like me some Pacifico every now and then, too.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
That was Cabo beer.